Okay, everyone, we're back after the Pesach break over here. We're starting fresh. We're going strong. I hope everyone had a nice Pesach. It was good. It was good. Everyone was good. We're going to, where are we in this world? Heichan ani ba'olam. The question we must always ask ourselves is, we are starting a new piece today. So if you're just joining in person, or if you're just joining on the recording for the first time, today's a great day. What we've been learning is in Orot, the Zeronim section, we're up to piece Vav. We had just the last 6 or 7 shirim on healing and suffering, on Yisur Mamrekim, suffering that cleanses. And now we're moving on to the next piece, Milchemet HaDe'ot ve'emunot. Literally, these words translated are the war of ideas and faith. More colloquially, what this means is the war of worldviews. That in this piece we're going to discuss a need for a new approach for chinuch. We're going to discuss fear-based Judaism and the limitations of fear-based Judaism. And we're going to discuss embracing modernity and how do we navigate modernity. We're going to also be discussing, of course, in Rav Kook's deep, mystical, lofty way, the need for expanded emunah, which ultimately becomes some answer for everything, deep emunah. And we're also going to be discussing, the world of worldviews, of what do we do with the flood of modernity, the flood of technology? What's Klal Yisrael's role in all this? And so it's an amazing thing. I also want to add a story over here before we begin. This story really doesn't have to do with the piece, but I think it's worth mentioning just because this is Rav Kook share. So the other day, I bought a set of Rav Kook Svarim, the whole set. It's like 21 Svarim, and it's on sale now for the next, maybe today's the last day Mosad Rav Kook sale. It was like 780 shekel, which is it's normally 1,600 shekel. So I bought the whole set. It was a very happy day. It was a little mini Kabbalah Satorah to buy a whole set of Svarim like that. And I had posted on my status, me holding the Svarim, and someone responded back to me that that day, it was earlier in the week, was Monday. That day was the day of Avram Yitzchak. It was Chesed Shebegvura in the Sfira, So that was Rav Kook's name, Avram Yitzchak HaKohen. And it was on the day of Chesed as Avraham and Yitzchak as Gvura. So it's like Rabbi Nachman says in Kudei Moharan, all the days of Sfira, the whole world is talking about those Sfiras of the day. Every conversation in the world somehow revolves around the Sfira of the day during Sfiras Omer. So I think it's a mitzvah to be mefarsim the Maisa, because what we're doing has a Hashgacha Elyona here, So, okay. Back to Milchemet HaDe'ot ve'emunos, right? So again, we're going to be talking about all these amazing things. In many ways, we're still competing with the war of worldviews. Haredi, Dati Leumi, modern. There's such a flood of information. There's such a flood and ability to access all sorts of opinions of every worldview possible. Liberal, Democrats, right? Republican, these are all worldviews at this point. They're not just politics. And it's confusing, And I always think how much of our worldview is really our own? I listen to a pro-Bibi podcast. I'm like, yeah, Bibi's the best, Then I read an article bad about Bibi, and I'm like, he's the worst, And then anything I read, it's like, well, Gamash. Anything I read, it's swayed so easily, or any podcast or anything you listen to, you're like, that's it, I have the truth, And it just goes to show how little of our own thinking we actually have, and how easily we're swayed. So we're amidst the war of faith, amidst the war of worldviews, and historically, Rav Kook is talking about the old Yishuv, the new Yishuv. He's talking about the Zionists who wanted to throw off Yiddishkeit and the Sheila of the balanced integration with Torah or not, right? And that's what he was talking about in his day. But of course, the tzaddik is speaking for future generations. He's talking about us here in Eretz Yisrael, writing for nowadays, about how do we deal with everything. And you see, our Am is fighting all this out, right? And that's the polarization here in Eretz Yisrael. Our Am is fighting all this out. And we're going to see our role in this, and he's going to offer some advice, which was amazing because Rav Kook was seeing the nation being reborn. He was seeing the Tchiyat HaUmah, the revival of our nation. And he saw what was going to be and all the problems we're going to have from that and all its implications. And of course, in the world of Rav Kook, none of these are problems. These are all growing pains, etc., etc. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Milchemet HaDe'ot emunah, to the war of ideas and faith. Mishtoimimim heim harayanot mipnei shetef hadeot hazarot haholchot v'shodvot. It's astounded, flooded, mishtoimim, like wondered, like to be mishtoimim is like to be baffled. It's baffling. Heim harayanot, the ideas and thoughts that occur because of the flood of foreign opinions, hadeot hazarot, worldviews that are estranged, weird, foreign, haholchos v'shotvot, that are flooding, that are moving, and shotef means to, like a shtifa, it's to rinse, that are flooding the world. Beyichud deot zarot shel avodot zarot, right? Co-joined together with not only just deot zarot, foreign worldviews, right? But even joined together with ideas of idolatry. Right? And this is a reference to Christianity, which was a shituf, a hybrid of ideology of Avodah Zarah and not. But we also learned, Rav Kook had adapted an understanding in the previous piece, that any time a person says that they understand Hashem and Hashem's ways, and they think they understand Hashem, he said that is also Avodah Zarah. Right? As we learned, that deifying Hashem and Hakshama, understanding that, thinking that you understand Hashem's ways, is making Hashem into an image, right? So when Rav Kook is talking about the flood of foreign ideas, he's also talking about Jewish foreign ideas and our own Judaism and how we relate to it. And you just see, right, Portzot Heim B'Shetef, right? And you just see, on one hand, our access to information is an amazing thing, right? We have ChatGPT. It's just like, what a wonder, It's a wonder, And we have access to so much amount of information. On one hand, that's good because now there's so many different ways for people to connect to Yahudus. Everyone could find their own path. Everyone could find what speaks to them, right? On the other hand, it's just so confusing. We have access to unlimited information. They did a study on too much information. They did on peanut butter, jelly jars in a supermarket. They put out they put out every flavor of jelly in a rack. There's billions of flavors of jelly, right? And they sold them, and very little sold. But then they removed them, and they only kept 5 or 6 flavors of jelly, and then they started selling like hotcakes. Not like hotcakes, but like jam, right? They started selling because when you have too much information, you're flooded with every product on Amazon. How do you choose? What do you do, right? So it's the same thing in worldviews. It's the same thing with opinions, right? There's a flood of ideas that are coming to the world, and this is confusing. Portzot, right? One day I'm Breslov, one day I'm Chabad, one day I'm a cook, one day I'm like this, and I see some settler with a long white beard. I'm like, I gotta be like that, It's confusing. Now, where do we place ourselves, right? Portzot hein b'shetef el toch ha'machane. They've broken all the boundaries, Portzot, they've broken all the boundaries with a flood into our camp, El Toch HaMachane. Lochim levavos rabim, they've grabbed the hearts of many of us, umovu uvosos es hadrachim, and they've distorted our paths. Matos rabim mitziirenu, and it's fooled, it's tilted, it's pushed away, or it's made many of our youth midarche chaim lidarche misa, from the path of life to the path of death, right? So people are getting caught up in this, right? And especially in his days, what was it in his days? It was all the philosophies, it was all the isms, it was all the faith, all the flood of ideas of faith, communism and thisism and thatism, right? And So that's more specific. Zionism, right? That's what he was referring to in those days, right? And people see that and they say, oh, that's fantastic, right? I could be a gamer. I could be a YouTuber. I could do all these things, right? What do I do? How do I place myself? Umaginim hamaginim al HaDe'ot shel hayadus marimim kol tzvacha. And the protectors of the opinions, the protectors of proper Judaism, marimim kol tzvacha, they raise their voice. The Rabbanim, the teachers of Torah, they start shouting, Mivatlin et hadeos rabos. And what do? They go ahead and they speak bad about all things. This is no good, and that is no good, and this is no good. Megalim et ziyufam v'shikram al yidei beira gidrei hayadut. Right? They reveal the fakeness and the falseness, the illusion of it all through clarifying what is the opinions of Judaism. Right? So you're going to say, I want to be a Zionist, right, in his day. They say, no, but the Torah says that Zionism's no good, right? Or I want to be whatever you want to do, right? No, but that's not within the Gidrei Torah. Because they could do this compare and contrast, speaking bad, right? It's the bash and build, right? Speaking bad about whatever daya the youth wants to come into, whatever worldview the youth wants to adapt, right? And saying how, well, the Torah says this and that doesn't fit with the Torah. Right? So they expose, it's like the news. What do? Instead of actually saying the truth, which all of it is filled with lies, they expose the falsehood of the other opinion. Right? So what they try to do is, the Rabbanim in his day, and they do this nowadays as well, is they try to prove the other worldview, the other opinion, whatever that kid's doing is wrong. And a Rav Kook now is going to take a sharp critique of the Rabbanim that do this. Aval hadavar mesupik ma'od, but it's very doubtful. It's very, very doubtful. Im besignon zeh yala b'yadam, if this style of talking bad, of defensive Judaism, yala b'yadam, helps. Lahashiv achor es masha heichel it paretz kehar pratzim. If this really works to return back what began to burst open like a mountain, kehar pratzim, like a mountain that burst forth, right? Means he's saying, Rav Kook is saying, you want to say everything is bad and prove everything wrong and have this defensive Judaism by exposing the falsehoods and whatever it is that kid likes. Rav Kook said it's doubtful that you're actually successful in your attempt to do this, right? So like someone was telling me a story that just fresh off the press, there was this girl, this 11th grade girl, she was suspended from school. She's a great girl, and she was suspended from school because they caught her with a smartphone, okay? And this girl's an amazing girl, and she got caught with a smartphone, and what happens? The school catches her, and they bust her after the break, after the Pesach break, because they saw her one day during Pesach with her smartphone in school, strict smartphone rules, and they call her into her office. First of all, they couldn't tell her that she's suspended from school beforehand or punish her, so they wait till she comes to school. Then they suspend her after 3 weeks off vacation. They send her home for 2 days. And they say, we'll call you in for a meeting, right? And then the school starts telling her, 11th grade girl, school starts telling her, you're going to get a bad shidduch. You could marry a Chevron guy. You could marry a guy from a top yeshiva. Maybe you'll marry a Stark Imre guy now. Literally, this is what they say, right? I see your face looks horrified. I heard this story. I was like, what the heck? Right? Oh, yeah? Oh, you'll be less frum. You want to be less frum? You can be less frum. Right? This defensive Judaism, it's fear. This fear-based mind control that you're talking to an 11th grade girl. You're now saying, well, you choose. You could give up your phone. It's not really much of a choice. She has to follow the school rules, obviously, right? You could either give in your SIM card or you could hand in your phone and be a good girl. You could be a tzaddikas, right? And the whole time, she thought she's going in for some mature girl. She thought she's going in for some meeting to talk to the principal, like mano to mano, tzaddikas to tzaddikas, girl to girl, right? Woman to woman, And instead, the principal gives a monologue, for 45 minutes, how if you give up your phone, you still have a chance of marrying a Chevron guy. Top yeshiva. Fear. Fear-based, right? It's fear-based competing. Milchemet HaDe'ot ve'emunah. It's the war of worldviews, right? And these parents had told me that the girl was like, does the principal not even understand me? Does the principal not even understand me? Does the principal understand the world that I'm coming from? Does the principal, and the parents had told me, the girl said back to the principal saying, well, that's not my parents' worldview. You know, that's not the hashkafa of my parents. And she said, the principal like brushed it off. Well, it's true, but you came out amazing. Like if you adapt your parents' hashkafa, your kids, like what happened here was some sort of fluke, you know? And if you adapt the same hashkafa, like you're setting your kids up for like, who knows, maybe they'll be not religious, right? Maybe they'll go off the derech, right? That's the fear, the limits of defensive Judaism, right? So a fear-based culture, right? A fear-based mind control culture. And the two talking points are always, your kids will not be religious or they're not going to get shidduchim, right? Your kids are not going to be religious, not going to get, right? So there's a Milchemet HaDe'ot ve'emunot that specifically here in Eretz Yisrael, where it seems to be a certain level of division, you know, it's more different in the States, but this stuff happens in the States also, you know? And it's specifically here that Rav Kook is speaking to, that there's going to be this worldview, and you're going to speak bad about everything. So what happens? A person grows up a defensive Judaism, right? So you grow up, everything's bad, everything's negative, right? So Rav Kook is saying, I'm a supik if that even works, right? Does that even work, right? Does that approach? So Rav Kook is espousing that we need an entirely new educational approach. We need an approach to education that is happy, that is not defensive, that is proactive. A worldview that encompasses the complexities of everyday life, modernity, and acknowledges the reality that we're actually living in. You know, acknowledging the reality that we're actually living in. You know, instead of this punitive, narrow, limiting thing that doesn't even work, right? It doesn't even work. You know, like to pretend a screen doesn't exist is like, what in the world, right? Again, everyone's got to do what works for their home, you know, but it's crazy. Okay. So we need a new type of education, not one that's based on fear and mind control, one that's not defensive but expansive and not threatened by difference, right? We need one that's not afraid of the world, and emunah that's deep enough to embrace the complexities of the reality that we actually live in. Okay, Victor. Sorry if that was a tirade. I just had to talk about that. Okay, beyichud toim hein, beyichud. Right, and they wonder why everyone's off the derech. Nothing's good. Okay, beyichud toim, beyichud together with this toim hein hamivakshim lahagder tayadus b'agdaras yedua. And not only that, but people are making the mistake. The people that want to put Judaism into neat and fixed categories. Mitzad nishmasa v'tachna haruchani, according to its a spiritual and its spiritual technicalities, and its way, right? You want to say, well, Judaism holds this and this and this, and you whittle it down and you kind of sharpen and mold it. He says that's also an error to put Judaism into neat fixed categories. Even though it is possible that according to our history, right, and according to its senses, it is possible to be Magdir Judaism. But nevertheless, right, that is a mistake. He kolelet kol b'nishmata, right? Judaism, why is that a mistake? Because he kolelet kol b'nishmata. Everything Judaism includes. In the soul, in the heart of Yahadus, everything in the world, Judaism includes within it, in its soul. V'kol hanetiyot haruchaniyot, and all spiritual inclinations and desires. Hagiluyot v'yanistarot, that are revealed and that are hidden. Tzfunot hein b'hachlala elyona, they are deeply tucked away and hidden in the lofty consciousness of Hashem. Right? That just like Judaism, it gets absolutely bound together with Hashem. Meaning to say, Judaism's so big and so expansive And because it's directly tied to Hashem, so like just like the whole world fits in Hashem, right? And Hashem is everywhere in the world, so too Judaism is so expansive. Judaism is so big, it's so colorful, it has such a colorful tapestry that it's all inclusive. So you're going to limit it and you're going to say, well, Judaism's this and that, right? That's not big enough. That's not big enough. Kol hagdara kizu legabi hi kitzutz b'netiyosa v'dugma la'akamos pesel masecha l'shem hatzivyon elokim. Any type of trying to pin Judaism down to a specific formula. Kol hagdara kizu legaba. Any tying Judaism down to a specific rigid formula, kizu, hi kitzutz b'netiyosa. That is like cutting saplings from the tree. V'hedugma la'akamat pesel. Right? It's like setting up an idol, umasecha l'shem hatzivyon Elohi. It's like deifying God, and it's deifying Judaism, and it's making a pesel out of Judaism. Now here's a reference from Kitzutz to Acher, Elisha ben Azuya, Kitzutz ben Husseya. It's like cutting saplings from its source. Right? We know this famous story of Elisha ben Avuya, who was Acher, as the Gemara in Chagiga explains, right? That he went up to Shemayim, there were Arba Nichten Sula Pardes. Elisha ben Avuya went up to Shemayim, and what happened there is Akiva, right, the days of Sfira, Rabbi Akiva was Nichnas v'yatzei, Shlomi went in peace, Ben Azai went crazy, another person, Ben Zoma, he looked and he died, or I don't remember if it was Ben Azai or Ben Zoma, and then there was Elisha ben Avuya. He went up, he saw the angel Memtet, the angel Metatron, right, and it says he was sitting, and he said, doesn't the pasuk say that there's no sitting, Eitzel L'kitzei HaKavod? He said, must be there's two Rishiyot. There's two sources. And Elisha ben Avuya, it says he came back and was on Shabbos, and he thought they were shtei Rishiyos. They were two gods, Ki'ilu, right? Two domains of ruling in the upper worlds. And it says that he took a sapling and he cut it. And a woman came over to him on Shabbos. That's Talisha, that's Talush. You're not allowed to detach something from its source on Shabbos. He cut the thing on Shabbos. Issa deraisa. A woman saw him. She said, aren't you the famous Tana Elisha ben Avuya? And he went, Ch-. And she said, oh, you must be Acher. You must be someone else. Right? And the deeper understanding of this thing, the Gemara says he was kitzutz b'netuseya. He was kitzutz b'netu. He was cutting saplings. Means seeing life detached from the oneness behind the Plulish Mastanos. Seeing life detached from Hashem. Right? I think there's maybe two Rishiyos. Maybe there's multiple gods. Right? Maybe there are multiple sources to my experience of life. That's called detaching something from its source, from its sapling, cutting saplings. Right? So Elisha ben Avuya cut it, and that's why they called him Acher, meaning to say maybe there's another power in my life other than God. We all have a little bit of Elisha ben Avuya in us, thinking that other things are the cause of our experience and happening without Hashem's power behind it, right? So what he's saying is that when you try to take the infinite and put it into finitude, you try to take the unlimited and try to be Magdir, Judaism, that is called making God. That is called making God an idol, right? So anything to be Magdir, Judaism, even though it's possible, right? He gives credence. It is possible you could do that. But nevertheless, he considers that an approach that doesn't work. It's comparable to the carriers of Judaism. Right? In order to do this, it's comparable in the carriers of Judaism. It's like us between the nations of the world is like man regarding the entire creation. In creation itself, you'll find that there are things that are not in man. Right? If you look around the world, you'll see, like Rav Nassan always talks about, like an animal always does what it's supposed to do. Right? The shore always plows, the donkey always goes, the birds always chirp in the morning. But man, we're all confused. Like, we get up, we don't do what we're supposed to be doing in life. Right? So, right? Adam ubehema toshia Hashem, right? Man and animal, Hashem saves. Meaning to say that animals do certain things better than we do, right? Because they just do what they're supposed to do. You never wake up one day and a cow wakes up and he's like, I really want to be a pig, or Mr. Funny Bunny. You know that kid's book, Mr. Funny Bunny, right? He wants to be everything else but who he actually is, Hashem Yazor. Hashem Yazor, right? It's the world of ideas, right? I want to be everything that I actually am, anything not to own my story, right? Libriot rabot yesh yisronos she'enam ba'adam, right? In creation has things that man doesn't possess. PJ Funny Bunny. Avavat seirav haklali, but the general inter-inclusion, shel haskulot va'aliyot v'rochnias al yadam, but what does man have? Man has the ability to bring everything to an inclusive spiritual consciousness. In order to bring together all the multifacets and powers of life and elevate them from its potential to its fruition, they were to bring things out alive. Right? And this is what makes man spiritual awareness and consciousness in the world. This is what elevates man, that we have the ability to bring all the multifacets of life into the circle and say, you see this? This smells like God. Ki'ilu, right? You see this? This is divine. Animals can't do that. Plant life can't do that. A rock can't do that. But what we can do, we can elevate everything to its source by inter-including everything into the source of life. Even the foreign worldviews, is what he's saying. And I love these words. They're just so like, I love when Rav Kook speaks like this. You're going to see. And he's going to say even more things later in the piece. Because every nation has a capability and something special about it, better, and a potential better than what the Jewish people have, that what you find in Yisrael. Right? Right? Every Am has something unique about it that is not found in the Jewish people, right? Like, the Fighting Irish, they're good at football, And the French, they're great at baking, And you go, voulez-vous, you go to France, you get a good croissant, right? And every country, every nation has something that it excels in more than the Jewish people, right? You don't find, he speaks well about the nations of the world in many, many places, and you're going to say even amazing things later on. He's going to say that every religion is somehow bringing out Hashem's kavod, right? As Rabbi Nachman says in Aye, he says a similar thing, but he says it like in an amazing way in this piece. We're going to get to it, just foreshadowing, right? But he speaks positive. The Ishbitzer also says, the Mei Shiloach, he says in another piece, I have to remember exactly where it is. It's been a long time since I saw it. But the Ishbitzer says, he says that every nation has something good about it. Look at this. Every nation has something good, right? All this negativity. They're bad. Goyim are bad. And this one's bad and that, right? Throughout Gullus, what was it? It was the Jews are good and the Goyim are bad, right? And then you come to Eretz Yisrael and they're not Goyim here, right? So you're like, the non-religious are bad, right? And this is the Milchemet HaDe'ot, right? This is what Rav Kook is addressing over here, right? Like, you're saying everything's bad, right? So you grow up in a world that's fear, right? By putting everything down, like, what does that do to the psyche of an individual, right? Goyim are bad and movies are bad. Everything's bad, right? So what profound impact do you grow up in thinking the world is fearful, right? The world is a scary place. What does that do to an individual's psychology and their spiritual psychology, right? So Rav Kook is saying, no, there's good. I mean, he speaks bad in other places about, he wasn't naive, but he says, yeah, every nation has something good to offer the world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here, right? Every nation has something great about it, right? That's not found in Yisrael, and they even do it better than Yisrael, right? Aval Yisrael, okay. Aval Yisrael, but the Jewish nation, betor tamsis shel anoshit kula, as a facsimile, as the basis, as the essence of all humanity. Mikapsim bekirbim es skulos kol ha'amim. We co-join within ourselves the potential of all the nations kulam. Vehein misachdos betochim betzur ideale kedusha beachdos nisha. And we gather together the good potential from all the nations of the world and elevate it to its source in a complete unity, in a complete achdus. So every nation has something good about it, but the Jewish people, we have the good of all the nations, right? And we have within us the stripes and everything to be mitached, to gather together all the sparks of the nations and have that within ourselves, right? So any any desire in order to magdir Judaism, to put it into a neat fixed compartment, this is what Judaism is, right? It's not it. Why? Because we contain everything inside of ourselves. We contain the whole world inside ourselves. We contain all the nations of the world inside of ourselves. Like Rabbi Nachman has in several of his stories, he talks about, in one of the stories of the 7 beggars, he talks about there's a map of the world, right? There's a what is it, the heart? The lave of the world, right? Has in it, there's a heart and there's a spring, right? And the heart yearns for the spring. And the spring yearns for the heart, but it's getting scorched by the sun. And only when the sun goes down does it provide relief. And that heart has a map that has the whole world in it. And that has every street. And in that street, there's another map and another map. It's like keeps going, like those videos that go and it zooms in and zooms in and zooms in and zooms in and zooms in forever, right? So Am Yisrael, our nation, is the inter-inclusion of all the maps of all the worlds, right? Of all time. We contain everything within ourselves. So any desire to speak bad about other things, why do that when you can speak good? When you can find the good and elevate everything to its source, right? Like Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Aleph in Lesson Kudim Aran, right? You have to be mistakel the seichel b'chol davar. You have to look to the inner intelligence of life. You have to look towards the mind of creation. We'll do one more paragraph over here. Histaklis choderes b'yoser srichen anu l'mera'os ha'ela. A penetrating emunah, a deep emunah, we need to look very carefully at all the world events that are happening. Histaklis haklalit hamakefet v'im ze choderes ad l'pnimei pniyasum shel hamon kol hadeos v'tachnei harayinot hemunayim sheba'olam. We need to look in the deepest of the deepest, the inside of the inside, to the flood of worldviews, right? And we need to discover the underlying principles, the unifying principles that tie everything together, that tie the whole world together, that are ma'ached the entire creation. We have a few more minutes. Right? So the need to discover the underlying unifying principles that are absolutely true and that apply to all things, and not to be magdir and to have a positive Judaism is amazing, because Klal Yisrael, we contain everything within ourselves. Now look at the next sheets, next paper over here. I'm going to read a sentence or two from Orot Yisrael, which is another section in Orot. I just photocopied for everyone. What? What are you saying?
I think it's really good.
Really good? You like this piece? Nice. What do you like about it?
Just the limiting, what people try to limit Hashem and Judaism. Really, it's Ein Sof, and you're putting
Right.
a dent on it.
Right, that's what I love about here in Eretz Yisrael. You see the hues of the Jewish people, the colors, the gradations of us, the different, all different types of Jews. Because there's all different types of people, right? Not to be only this, not that, right? So like we were saying before, like here there's no Goyim, so it's like the Chilonim are bad, and this type of Jew is bad, exactly, right? The fear, right? And the mind control, and the dogma of it all. Listen to what he says over here. Okay, this is Perek Aleph. This is a section in Orot called Orot Yisrael, where he talks about us and the nations of the world. He speaks about a lot of different things here. Another section, I'm going to read one or two lines over here. Knesset Yisrael hi tamsis havaya kula. Am Yisrael, the soul of Yisrael, is an example. It's the basis of all of existence, of all of eternity. It's a tamsis havaya kula, of all of eternity. Uba'olam hazeh nishbas tamsis zu be'umah Yisraelit mamish. And in this world, this influence of Am Yisrael containing all of existence was sent down to our nation, mamish, b'chumriyusa, in our physicality, v'ruchniyusa, in our spirituality, b'todata v'emunata, in our faith and in our beliefs. Right? So what's Judaism? What's Knesset Yisrael? All of existence we contain. Tamsis havaya kula. Right? The essence of eternity. That's what we are. Now skip to Gimel. I printed out Gimel for everyone. Okay, we're skipping to Keta Gimel, paragraph Gimel in Orot Yisrael. Ein lahagdir es mehusa shel Knesset Yisrael. We do not lahagdir. We don't put boundaries, right? We don't make a quick fix. Es mahus shel knesset, the essence of our people. Bigvulim miyuchadim, right? With limited definitions. B'toarim mugbalim, and limit. We don't define who we are. You can't. We're undefinable, right? No language could describe who we are. We include everything. Right? It's another thing. He goes there. Why? Because we contain everything. So any attempt to try to be Magdir Judaism and who the Jewish people are, although it's possible, Rav Kook says, I doubt this works. I doubt this works. Because we kolelet hakol. We're ein lahagdir es mehuso. You cannot define us. We're undefinable. Because we contain all of creation and all of existence. And when he says Knes Yisrael tamsus avayakula, Knes Yisrael is the essence of all of existence. That doesn't only mean the time period that we're living in. That means from the moment of creation, all the generations up until now, and all the future generations, and all the opinions and all the ideologies and everything that's happened in the world, we take and absorb into us. And we kollel, we refract the divinity that lies underneath all of it. So any attempt to try to prove and distinguish who we are, it's futile. Silence is the best thing. Is that amazing? It's amazing. Thank you, Hashem, for giving us these amazing tzaddikim. Okay. Love that. You can't. What can you say? What can you say after this? You know, like he said in the previous piece we learned, words will only take away. Kolomosif korea. Any attempt to try to explain. Thank you.